Well, welcome to another edition of the We Talk Chelsea podcast. And miracles do happen for the first time in almost a year. Chelsea managed to beat Premier League opposition 2 games in a row. This evening's game, Chelsea defeated Fulham 2-0. Goals from Mudryk with his first goal in Chelsea colours, and a goal from the returning Armando Broja for his first start appearance since October 2022. Chaps, how are we feeling?
I thought that was absolutely excellent performance from us all the way around. I couldn't name one player that had a particularly bad game today. I don't know about you guys, but I just thought from start to finish, it was a very professional performance. It reminded me a little bit of old school Chelsea, if you like. You know, we went there with a game plan. Obviously, the second goal after the first goal was a bit of a bit here we go, but. I thought every single player on that pitch played their part in that performance. And I couldn't name one player who had a bad game. There's so many positives, and we'll obviously go into those. Tim, what do you reckon, mate? I thought it was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think it's the first time I'll be positive this season and say that's exactly what I wanted to see. And that's exactly what I got. I walked into this game thinking we were going to lose 1-0. But first 5 minutes, I think we showed an approach that I haven't quite seen this season since pre-season, where we just came out the blocks and looked like we were ready to prove everyone wrong. Doesn't matter if we were going to miss 10, 15 chances. We would just make sure that we would actually score a goal today. And that was the big difference, I think. From what I've seen from previous games, every other game, it looked like we were dejected by every chance we missed. But today, it looked like doesn't matter how many we miss, we'll just keep going and keep trying.
Yeah, it's an absolute. I don't know about you, but for me, that's the best Chelsea performance I've seen since potentially against Dortmund when we won that Champions League against them. And even then, we were under the cosh for a large proportion of the game. But it looked like we were largely in control for large portions of that game. Like, Charlie, I want to ask you this question. Were Chelsea good or were Fulham that bad?
Well, Fulham causes a few problems, didn't they? There's no doubt about that. I mean, I don't think Fulham were anything special, and obviously that's that. So let's not all get carried away. There's no doubt about that. But there were so many positives in this game. I thought Enzo was absolutely brilliant in this game. I really think he bossed that midfield. I think Caicedo played a bit better than we've seen him so far. Mudryk was unbelievable in the first half. Obviously, that the injuries are concerned. Broja, obviously coming into the games, but he looked like he offered a different dynamic there. Cole Palmer, I mean, there were just so many positives. I mean, there was not one player, like I keep saying, on that pitch who didn't turn up and really put in a shift today, and I thought that was a really good thing.
Yeah, I mean, Tam, from the outset, I think when the squad was announced, how did you feel we were seeing the return to? It turns out Marc Cucurella is a right back. Who knew? But it's the return to Levi Colwill to the left back position following his game against Brighton at a centre back position. I think I'll be completely honest. I was looking at the game and thinking, oh, if this is the same thing that we're experiencing again, so many players out of position. You got a left back playing right back, a centre back playing as left back. You got a number 10 playing as a right winger. Like, before the game, how were you feeling before that? But what we see didn't mirror exactly what we've been seeing week on week.
Yeah, I thought looking at the lineup, we did look a little bit narrow as a team. I thought we would only get width from one player, and that concerned me a little bit because I thought Fulham were going to be a lot more defensive than they actually turned out to be. So I worried about how we going to stretch that Fulham defence or get in behind them, especially with a Broja that hasn't played for very long. And, we saw like Enzo was lined up to be the number 10. And we know, well, famously from just seeing him this season, his best position has been when he's been in central midfield. So I was concerned about that. But as the game went on, we saw that, it was more of a 4-3-3, and Enzo was allowed to pick the ball up from deeper spaces. Gallagher attacking the attacking spaces, also starting from deep. So, yeah, looking from the starting lineup, I was really concerned. But how the game turned out to be, I think we could all say it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, I think Charlie, when it comes to that starting lineup as well, it's like Tembo was saying, we weren't particularly happy about the lineup itself, but injuries has kind of forced that upon us. We don't have an out-and-out right back at the moment, but you could have shifted across Axel to Stacey, who has played as a right back for Monaco previously. He could have played on the right, and he could have moved Marc Cucurella over to the left, and have that centralised pairing of Colwill and Silva. But it's kind of worked out in a bizarre way. Like it's the same in my head. I think you're doomed to repeat. If you repeat history, you're doomed to keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. But it seems this week, for some reason, it's just clicked. Like, what is the thing that's clicked? Is it Marc Cucurella right back?
No, I don't think so. I think what it was is it was Colwill. I really do think that in the first half, especially, he was picking up balls much higher up the pitch than he has before in the previous games. Obviously, the first goal was all down to him, feeding that ball into Mudryk, and Mudryk's been left isolated on that side all season because of that, and putting him on that side and just giving him the com. I'm not sure what the thinking was with Cucurella on that side. Obviously, like you said, there's other people around, but I really thought Colwell in the first half made a huge difference, and we penetrated them a lot down that side. It gave them a lot of problems, and that was really what seemed to break the edge, if you like,
Yeah.
Tim, do you think the potential for Cucurella playing on that, being given the selection for the right side again, has anything to do with the fact, Fulham playing with Willian on the left side and, the emergence of inverted wingers, potentially having somebody that has a mirroring foot could be a beneficial factor to Chelsea at this time?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think, was it Anthony Robinson? Was he their left back? I'm pretty sure he's right-footed as well. So he often looked to cut in as well. So it was kind of a almost genius inside plan, I suppose. You saw it with Azpilicueta years back when he used to defend with the inside, and he was almost one of the best. Well, he was at the time the best 1v1 fullback, I think, in the league for like 3 or 4 years during that time. So it kind of worked with how aggressive Cucurella is. And what he did well today was made sure he didn't jump into too many challenges. He did get caught out once by Willian, but that was, I think, bound to happen. I think Cucurella's got that moment in him. But overall, I think him playing as a right back, he actually looks more comfortable there than he ever did as a left back for Chelsea at the moment.
Which it suits us particularly well, because if Malagusto is going to be out for the next, is it another game that he's going to be banned for? It's looking like Cucurella is probably going to start against Burnley if it's 3 games.
Yeah.
Reece James is rumoured to be returning for the Arsenal game. Mm-hmm. Charlie, when it comes to Cucurella, you were a vocal critic of him last season. Like, how are you feeling about Cucurella as a player now?
From what we've seen so far this time around, I think he's really putting in an effort, and he just looks solid. He looks solid. He doesn't look like he just doesn't look as panicky as he did last season. I think last season on the ball, I mean, we went to Wolves away together, and me and Tem went to the Aston Villa away game, and we were right next to him on that side. He looked very shaky, very cagey. It just seems that he's got a bit more. There's just a bit more about him now. He seems to have a bit more, on the go, if you like, and a little bit more confidence, a bit more composure, I suppose, is the word that I was looking for. And that just seems how it is. I don't think going forward he's going to offer a lot in that position. But in terms of defensively, he looks absolutely fine. But obviously it depends who he's paired up with. In terms of the left wingers that he's paired up with, obviously the ones who cut inside, like Willian, it probably works in his favour a little bit because of his left-footed stance,
Yeah, it's so bizarre to think at this point, not even this point last year, but we were probably thinking in May time, like Cucurella, it's just that, we're not going to see anything of this play, we're not going to see the Cucurella that was at Brighton the season before, but it's weird how things can just put him in a different position. All of a sudden he shines. Like, do you remember when Azpilicueta signed from Marseille and, he's a right back by trade, but couldn't get in the squad. Was it over Ivanovic? And then all of a sudden he was... Yeah, couldn't get ahead in the squad over Ivanovic. I think Bosingwa, or did he leave for QPR at the end of that season?
Bosingwa had already left that season.
Okay, so it would have been Ivanovic. You couldn't get ahead of Ivanovic, and then all of a sudden, Azpilicueta, I think it was due to injuries or suspensions. He's been asked to cover for Ashley Cole at left back, and all of a sudden he's found a position, and all of a sudden he's finding time in the team. Like I'm really, 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 really hopeful that this is going to kick on for Marc Cucurella, hopefully, because there's a player there. We just need to get the best out of him. Hopefully, that's it. What we need to do now is we do need to talk about a key person for this game. And what a first half for Mykhailo Mudryk. Mykhailo Mudryk, another player who we haven't quite seen perform to the top levels, but the potential has been there. Mykhailo Mudryk with his first Chelsea goal. It's taken him a long while to settle into the system, almost a year since we signed him. Well, that's a bit harsh. Maybe 9 months since we signed him, and he gets his first goal in Chelsea colours. It was a lovely piece of football on the left side with Levi Cole keeping the ball in on the byline, and he was through with a lovely cross through, chested it down wonderfully, and a great finish on Bern Leno. And Charlie, for me, in that first 45 minutes, that's an example of what Mudryk is capable of doing. I haven't seen a Mudryk like that since his debut against an aging James Milner against Liverpool. Do you agree?
Yeah, and I think you sent me something today, and Pochettino's been saying it in training. He wants to succeed. That guy, he does have the desire. I don't think anyone's denying that. I think he's proven that in games. And I was saying if our finishing was better, he'd probably have 3 or 4 assists by now, wouldn't he? Anyway, so I think he's today was just everything just went well for him in that first half. But obviously, it's concerning that he went off. At half time, and obviously we'll find out when the dust settles what that looks like. But in the first half, he just looked exceptional for me. He was all over the place, all over the pitch, tackling back, really putting his foot around, and I really like that about him. And he took the goal absolutely brilliantly. That was a striker's finish. That's what we want. From him. So I thought it was an excellent performance.
Yeah, attempt not to play like devil's advocate on this one, but it wasn't all plain sailing from the outset. The first 10 minutes from Mykhailo Mudryk was a bit ropey, and I get the feeling that Mudryk is very much a confidence-based player. He needs to kind of grow into a game. Like, do you think he's going to stumble across the formula to get going from the off?
Yeah, I think we all just needed to see him score a goal, and I think he needed it more than anyone else in our squad. I think, with all the reports coming in that he's putting in a lot of extra training, Poch really likes him now. He seems to start to trust him, and he's finally getting a bit of confidence to take on players, and things are coming off as he's doing them. We saw in pre-season where, he even had the confidence to start doing tricks and little skills. And I think it's probably a thing that I personally heard from the players that were telling him like how good he almost doesn't believe he is. And it's something Pochettino alluded to last week as well, when he said, I challenge him to a crossbar challenge every time, and Mudryk always loses, but he doesn't want to face me anymore because I always win. And then the one time Mudryk actually did beat him, and he was like, well, yeah, you should believe. It's sort of a lesson of believing yourself more, and good things will come off by having a bit of confidence in yourself. And you see it in his game. You definitely see it. A guy, when he tries something and he thinks, oh no, that's not come off, I'm not going to do it again now. I'm going to hide a bit inside myself or try something completely different. And I think with every young player, it's more about doing the repetition at the things you're good at. Stick to what you're good at, and if that stuff is going off well, then you'll see the fancy tricks and other complicated players that will come good. And I think he did the basics of what he's good at really well today.
Who would you say, if you were to compare a player from Chelsea's past that Mykhailo Mudryk has the potential to be, in terms of like maybe it's hard to put this on him so early because it's still relatively young, but it has elements of him. The only one that I can think of is probably Eden Hazard. That's the only one that springs to mind, really.
Maybe Robin.
You don't agree?
Maybe Robin. Very left-footed player. He relies heavily on his pace ultimately, Mudryk, but some of the stuff he was doing today, and it was just that finish. It was a striker's finish. It was a striker's finish, and it really, it gave me a sense of sort of confidence in him. Which I'll be honest with you, I haven't quite got Mudryk just yet. But today was the first time where I've actually looked at him and gone, yeah, he's actually a player. That guy.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, and again, I keep going back to it. I think a lot of it was Colwell. I think he was given a bit of a Colwell was purposely put a little bit further forward. I believe that, and Cucurella to sit back a little bit more, and that kind of gave him a bit of a license to go further forward and not have to tackle back.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you, Charlie. Like today was the first game where I thought I'm seeing something from Mudryk. I am. Like, the first 10 minutes with Tembo, some of the like you mentioned, the dribbling was a bit off. You know, the heavy touches towards the byline, but maybe it's just he's got to warm up a little bit. But you disagree with the comparison to Eden Hazard. I appreciate that's big boots to fill, but like, who do you think he's more similar in a similar vein to?
I honestly couldn't tell you a Chelsea player I attribute him to. I would say he more reminds me of Gareth Bale. And I know that may be a bit of a weird comparison, but it's the raw pace and power, if you know what I mean, of how he uses his physical abilities to get past players. And I think that if he could refine his game, that's more someone he could be like. I think a right-footed Gareth Bale. He's got shot power behind him. He's got a lot of physicality behind him. He's got raw pace and tenacity. And I think that that's sort of something that he needs to bring out more in his game. You saw the shot he took today, although it was very wayward. You can tell, like, if he could get shots like that on target, they'd fly in. They'd fly in most of the time. And, again, he's just a raw player. So he needs time to develop and just refine his game, I think.
Yeah, I think it's key that hopefully, fingers crossed, he did go off at half time with some form of knock, some form of injury, but we definitely can't afford any injuries. Now, there was an interesting thing that I read earlier today, just in terms of the sheer level of injuries, not just at Chelsea. We are top of the pile currently at the moment, but in the Premier League as a whole. Like, maybe this isn't We Talk Chelsea podcast centric, but do you feel that there's too many games now for players, or should the clubs be able to cope with it given the size of the squads that they have at their disposal?
Go on. I'll go first. Yeah, I almost think that there is almost too many games right now. I think we talked about this where, players are getting almost like 3-4 weeks off and the start of the new season already. Half of them have international games and what's it now? The new Euro one. I forgot the name of the trophy.
Conference.
Yeah, the new UEFA conference, whatever it is. So you add in more games, and then they've got 3-4 weeks to get back to preseason. Then they've got to get match sharp, and all of a sudden the season starts again. So you're almost overloading players. And it was something I wanted to mention about Chelsea's injuries. Lampard alluded to last season that a lot of these players weren't actually match fit, and so I don't know what was going on in training or what our medical staff or preparations were, but he said a lot of these players weren't actually match fit and ready to play, and it kind of coincides with Pochettino coming in, and he's known to overload his players with a lot of extra running, extra drills. If the team isn't playing well or whatever, he's going to make them run 2-3 more times, as Ricky Lambert, I believe, alluded to. Yeah, I think it was Ricky Lambert. So, with that sort of overload and with the fixture congestion of players just coming back from international breaks and whatnot, you're gonna get injuries, muscular injuries especially, and obviously there's always going to be impact injuries during games. So, in a sense, I think we need to just manage games better and our players better in terms of just slowing. Because I saw like in the 85th minute, we're still pushing so high up. Conor Gallagher, I understand he's a very fit footballer, but sometimes reserve a bit of your energy, there. And it comes with experience as well of knowing when to just sit back and soak up the pressure and play it slow, because we do attack at 1,000,000 miles per hour, but then we also have to run back at 1,000,000 miles per hour. So you're almost effectively putting your body under so much intense pressure, and you're prone to pulling a muscle or, I don't know, any type of injury can happen when you just, up and down the field. And I know it's something we're going to be one of the teams with the highest sort of kilometers covered per Premier League game just because of purely Pochettino. But with the amount of injuries we've had over the last few years, we've got to manage that somehow. And I think slowing down the game sometimes, like we saw today where he brought on defenders, yes, but also tell your attackers you don't need to press that high. We don't need to press that high. We soaked up most of the pressure. They didn't look like scoring apart from that one chance in the second half. So, like I say, I think there could be better game management in terms of fitness.
Yeah,
I
and I
mean,
think
but
that's
the thing is,
probably,
sorry to interrupt, Tom. I mean, the thing is, it's been that long since we've been in a position to even talk about game management. When you think about it, these players, these players just aren't used to it. I mean, it sounds really stupid, but when was the last time we were 2-0 up with 10 minutes to go? It just doesn't. It's never. It hasn't happened for. It's probably about a year that it's happened.
Bournemouth at home.
Bournemouth
27th.
Yeah, or Luton at home. Okay, we could argue, but you know, it's been such a long time since we actually had to manage a game, especially these away games in the Premier League. They're not these sort of games. They're tricky. 2-0's a funny scoreline. I mean, if Fulham score with 10 minutes to go, all of a sudden it's squeaky bum time. Excuse my French. And you know, it's a bit like that. But it does feel as though like we're as a team, we seem to just. We do this great strides, but yet it's almost like a war zone. You know, we seem to have collateral every time we do it. I mean, we've had Brozier's been taken off injured today, Mudryk's been taken off injured today, and Caicedo went down at the end as well. So it just seems to be, you know, one after another in terms of the injury list, and it just it is a concern, obviously, and maybe it is something to do with style of play. But we had the same thing last season. You know, people forget that.
Yeah. I'm curious to what Poch's take on this is going to be, because I think for too long last season, I think we sat back a lot when we didn't have the impetus to go forward. And I have to agree, Tim, like, in terms of time, and yourself, Charlie, in game management, you know, you're 2-0 ahead. You don't really need to press as hard and as intense as you need to do so. But at the same time, if Poch is telling them that this is what I want you to do, recover the ball, attack is the best form of defence, keep the ball, win the ball back high up the pitch as soon as you possibly can, I think, yes, it could be beneficial when we've got a full plethora of players at our disposal. There's players not even able to make the subs bench. But I think at this time, I think it's a little bit too risky, especially into the run of games that we've got coming up as well, where we're going to need players like coming back into this. You know, we've got to play 6 of the top 9 that finished in the top 9 last season. You know, these are clubs that we need to. It sounds bad as we're Chelsea, but we need to try and scrape points from them any way possible. If we can nick a 1-0 somewhere or get a point, against some of these clubs, it'd be absolutely fantastic. It's possible. Wolves beat Man City. It's just unfortunate that Rodri's probably going to be available for the game against Chelsea in a few weeks. But there's a few more players that we need to keep going and keep talking about, because we could wax lyrical about this squad, because there's not one player, in my opinion, that had a duff game. There was moments. Don't get me wrong, and it happens in any football match. It's not FIFA. There's going to be moments of where it's not going to be absolutely perfect. But a player that we need to talk about is Enzo Fernandez. We briefly touched upon it here. Now, Enzo Fernandez has got a magic hat. He was absolutely bossing it. And to me, Tem, Enzo Fernandez is not a number 10. He consistently looking to drop deep to get on the ball, and he was dictating play like prime Cesc Fabregas.
Oh yeah, he was absolutely tremendous today, and I think, like we just said, him in that deeper role, although it may make us slightly weaker in terms of, in transitions, he definitely needed to just keep that clock ticking, especially against teams like this. You need someone who's able to spray the ball very quickly and move about very quickly. So he's the sort of perfect catalyst for a team that's, almost either going to sit back or sometimes maybe even invite pressure onto you, because he's so good at keeping the ball. He rarely loses it. I'm not saying he always keeps it, but he rarely loses it. And he's got these clever sort of passes where it looks like he's being pressured by a player, and he sort of knocks it around the corner with the outside of his foot, or he does a turn on the dime, and it looked like the other player's already. He's kind of press resistant, a bit like Mateo Kovacic, where although he had a different way of getting out, he used to dribble out of situations. But Enzo's just clever with the one-touch sort of play. And you saw it a lot with Caicedo, where he constantly looked for him to just knock the ball off. And even Gallagher, I was very surprised with him. He even joined in with the flicks and tricks. He started, trying to chip the ball over players and do little roulettes and all this. And yeah, Cole Palmer, again, another excellent player. And I think they all linked up well. And Enzo was the catalyst to it, I think.
It just goes to show like what a difference is confidence is in players, because at some points through last season, even as fans, our confidence was so low, and even when Timber and I went to the Villa game a couple of weeks back, it was even in the crowd, it's just confidence so low. Nobody expected us to get anything from the game, but it just goes to show how big confidence is. And Charlie, Tim alluded to there, the passing between the midfield three of Caicedo, Enzo, and Conor Gallagher was sublime. Like I didn't feel worried that there was going to be a loose pass or anything like that. That they were holding the ball well under pressure.
Yeah, I mean, it's don't get me wrong. They weren't playing against Zinedine Zidane and Claude Makélélé or anything like that. But at the same time, it was what it was, in my opinion. It was just the fact that Pochettino actually played them in the correct sort of formation within the midfield, if you like. Gallagher actually plays a little bit better up. He's a presser, isn't he? Let's face it. He runs around. He's quite, he's a bit of a presser. He's not the greatest player on the ball. He panics a little bit on the ball, so he shouldn't play so deep. Enzo, God, I mean, he was playing. It was almost Ruud Gullit, and I think Caicedo, you didn't really notice him too much, but I think that's kind of the aim of the game, isn't it? With him, he's a kind of a player you don't really notice too much. He can drag players away like that. What's his name? Paulinho, is it? The Fulham player with the blonde hair. Yeah, I mean, he was just dragging him everywhere. That guy didn't really get in the game, so I think that was key. I think the midfield just seemed to balance a little bit better today, and that was obviously key. And then another conversation has to be had. Cole Palmer, I thought he was excellent. Just a duck to water.
Yeah, Cole Palmer making his first Premier League start for Chelsea, and he looks like he's settled in very, very quickly. And I don't know if you know, Tim, a lot of players really struggle at Chelsea to settle in very, very quickly, but he seemed to find his feet and got the ball rolling very, very quickly.
Yeah, and I think it shows that he was straight out that Pep school. He's so comfortable on the ball, so comfortable on the ball. Almost looked, I don't want to say our best player on the ball, but you know what I mean. Like you can tell he was straight out of Man City. He just looked like he was never going to lose the ball, and if he did lose it, it was most likely going to be a foul sort of thing. So the amount of composure he showed today really took a lot of pressure off us. In fact, because someone like Mudryk, I think if he had been pressed a bit more, he definitely would have lost the ball more times. So it was nice to have a little bit of a different dynamic where you could go short with one and maybe knock the ball onto Mudryk or give him that space to run into. So it was almost like how we used to have it with Willian and Hazard, if you know what I mean. Like the two different wingers, but it helped balance the team at the same time. In essence, yeah, he just linked up that attack very well. His passing was crisp. His final third movement was crisp. He just needed to finish a bit better. And there was one chance, I believe it was in the first half, where he just waited a little bit too long to make the pass. But he set up Broja's goal, didn't he, as well? I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I'm pretty sure he played the pass into Broja as the defender hit into Broja and we scored. So yeah, overall, I think he was my man of the match overall.
Yeah, I think Jamie here on Facebook said, just as bad football has become, how time waste when in front of rest, need to knuckle down on it. Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City are all at it. Timber and I were at the Aston Villa game. Emiliano Martinez was doing it minute 8. He was time wasting minute 8 when it was 0-0. So it's just a part and parcel with the game. Unfortunately, even at 0-0, they were playing for the draw and they got the win. So it's just the way it is. It's not going to go anywhere. And I played a game yesterday and I did the exact same thing. So
can I just add to that? Aston Villa are one of the worst teams when it comes to wasting time. Honestly, if you watch from an unbiased point of view, they used to get a lot away with it last season, but now because of these new rules, they just about get. I know Emi Martinez does this thing where he looks like he's going to give the goal kick to someone else, then he takes it himself and waits a few seconds, then like points to players like saying get into position. So it's a clever way of time wasting, but they definitely do. And you can see in the minutes that the ball stays in play. I'm sure Aston Villa were one of the lowest teams in the league in terms of balls actually beat the ball.
I think it was them and Newcastle last season. I think Newcastle were renowned for it last season. Yeah, it's just interesting how it is. Like it's the way it is. Like if it's your team doing it, you're loving it. But if it's when you're trying to chase a game, it's absolutely horrible and it's unbearable. So you're gonna pick on it a lot more than we would, and we've probably got our Chelsea tinted glasses on. Charlie, I want to throw this one back too. So Armando Broja, Cobham's number 9, returns to the starting lineup for the first time since November 2022. And for somebody that's probably not even fully fit at this point in time, we saw glimpses, we saw opportunities of a player that could potentially be there, given chances when he is fully fit. How did you feel he settled in to the game?
Well, I mean, in that chance he created in the first 2 minutes it was brilliant the way he created it, wasn't it? It was a striker's creation. It was just not quite a striker's finish. But yeah, I mean, his goal, it won't. I don't think it will go down as a goal of the season when you watch it back. But he got himself there. It looked a little bit more balanced, didn't it? It looked like he gave the 2 central defenders of Fulham a bit of something to think about. He was a bit more physical than Jackson. I think Jackson he's very good at sort of running at players, but in terms of sort of backing onto players and actually, making himself big and sort of all this sort of stuff, I don't think he's quite there yet for the Premier League. And I think in the Premier League nowadays, you do have to play with your back turned to the goal a lot more. It's not a game where you can just go charging forward, like Alan Shearer, Rooney used to. It's not that game anymore. You have to be a bit Harry Kane. You have to look for your wingers and this sort of stuff all the time. And I think he's probably a little bit more suited to the Premier League. That's not saying Jackson's not going to come good. He still may. But I think actually I would like to see him in the next game, even though Jackson is back. I would actually like if Broja's fit, I'd like to see him start. I think he did quite well.
I think Tem, you've got a different angle on this one. I mean, I personally, from my opinion, I thought he's half fit. He's going to make these mistakes. He doesn't look 100% there. But you pointed some out during the game, especially in the second half, in terms of fitness and how it didn't quite mirror up with what you were expecting from a player at that time.
No, and I think it just comes down to maybe play style, a bit of experience, not knowing where to be when in the game, and like I say, if a player's injured or maybe not as fit, you don't make those runs beyond or play on the edge of the last defender. You sort of come short and look for the easy option and just slow the game down. And it almost didn't look like he half wanted to do that. Maybe he wanted to push himself and think, oh, this is my chance now to prove myself. So let me try and get on the end of a pass, or let me just spread the play. And it's something that Lampard said before the game as well. That's one thing he's terrific at. He loves making those diagonal runs or runs beyond the last defender. He's got the pace. He's quite a long leggy player. So like you saw today, he was able to get on the end of a chance that looked like it fell away from him. And I think that's more of his game style. But I think today, like the second half, it just required him maybe to come a bit more short and let the wingers sort of drift beyond him, if you know what I mean.
Can I play devil's advocate on this one? Could that have been potentially a Pochettino decision to have made at that point? Do you think they might have taken Broja off if Mudryk hadn't have been injured? Do you think that could have been a possibility to put Sterling on instead to preserve Broja? Because we don't, Jackson might come back into the lineup, but if Broja's available, I think if he's playing well, if he's fully fit, I have to agree with Charlie. I think I'd like to see Broja because he adds a different dynamic. I think you and I were at the Villa game with Jackson. He just doesn't have that physicality needed just yet. It's like what Charlie said. It's not a case it's never going to happen, but it seems like he's lacking there something that maybe Broja doesn't have. Like the goal, admittedly, he knew nothing about the goal. Let's be completely honest. It's like a Tim Ream clearance. It kind of hit him. It's gone in. It is what it is. But I don't think Jackson would have found himself in that position to get in that goal. It just shows a different type of desire to be in that area. Do you think that it could have been something where that would have been the plan, but plans had to change and we had to be dynamic with it?
I think it could have been that, but I still attribute it down to just typical play style. Every player has their strengths and weaknesses, and I think his strength, like I say, is stretching the play. But however, I do agree he should have came off earlier. You could see that he was cramping up in that second half, and hopefully it's just down to cramp because we don't need him to be out now for 3 or 4 weeks or whatever to a hamstring or muscular injury. I hope it is just cramp. because I think we were forced to maybe play him longer than needed to be because of the Mudryk injury and whatnot. But yeah, like I say, I think it's just maybe a play style thing. And in regards to a natural goal scorer, I still think it's an issue where we don't seem to have someone in that 6-yard box. I saw quite a few times, especially Mudryk and I believe Palmer tried to play the ball through to him and he didn't quite read it. Maybe that will come in time. But it's just with Jackson, we've seen that as well, where he's not sort of anticipating it. And obviously he's fully fit. So we just need someone who's just got that bit of hunger for goals in that final third. We've seen it with Gallagher at times when he used to make third man runs at Palace and even at Chelsea last season. I think he scored against Bournemouth away where he just snuck into the box and headed it in. One of the defenders didn't pick him up, and it's just little things like that. I think we need to see with Sterling now playing on the right. He's not usually attacking the box late as he was at Man City, where Sane or whoever was on the right, or De Bruyne sometimes would pick the ball out on the right and sort of whip it in. If the striker or Aguero or whoever missed it, it would be Sterling at that back post just to shove it in. And, maybe that's why Poch used to play Chilwell, because he's very good at attacking back post. So maybe that was the thinking of playing Chilwell, and he gives you that balance also defensively. So, yeah, all in all, I'll just say that I think, that injury, I really hope it isn't something serious.
Yeah, we're touching wood and keeping all our fingers and toes crossed for Armando Broja. It's not a serious injury. You mentioned a player that to me has flown under the radar a little bit. He's not necessarily grabbing the headlines in terms of the stats of scoring goals, laying on assists. But Conor Gallagher is he's flying at the moment, especially from a player that was rumoured heavily all in the pre-season that he's probably going to be sold. Rumours of him going to Tottenham potentially for 40 million. He's a common player. It's pure profit. There was an area where we needed to, balance the books with that. But he was great today. His work rate is phenomenal. And I think I've mentioned it on podcasts before. He reminds me a little bit how Beckham used to play for England. And I think the problem with him a lot of the time is he's running around like a headless chicken. But there seems to be more purpose to Conor Gallagher at the moment now, Charlie. Do you agree?
Yep, and I think again that's just down to the midfield dynamic. It's just down to the way that the midfield was positioned today. The forward players was still Enzo and Gallagher, but Gallagher was the one more forward, and Enzo still had the ability to run forward. But Enzo was an intelligent midfielder today. He knew when to go back and he knew when to go forward. Gallagher doesn't quite have that, in my opinion. Gallagher, if you tell Gallagher to run, he runs. That's Gallagher. If you tell Gallagher to run to the corner flag, he'll run to the corner flag. But he doesn't quite have that intelligence. It's not a fault of his own. It's just that Enzo has that. He's the nucleus, if you like, of that midfield, and Gallagher's kind of the can play the side, but he can't be the nucleus. And I think that's what actually did really well for us today, was the fact that we gave Enzo that kind of free rein. We told Gallagher, look, you're going to have to play a little bit further up. Every time we go forward, there's going to be 5 of you going forward. It'll be Gallagher, Enzo, and 5 or 6, and the 3 other guys. And you guys were all going to attack in unison, but it was always Enzo who was at the back of that. But Enzo still got ahead of him, behind him when he needed to. I remember there was one time when I saw Enzo actually bombing. I've never seen that before, where he actually was bombing. Do you remember that? It was a sort of counter attack in the first half, and I was like, God, this guy is actually very versatile, but it's not. It doesn't necessarily mean he's a number 10 or anything like that. It's just where he needs to be placed in the midfield. And I think that the balance today worked so well. Of course, all 3 of them, in fact, had a really good game, including Caicedo. I thought Caicedo was excellent today as well. An unspoken hero, if you like.
Yeah.
Tim, where would you say? Do you think Conor Gallagher is one of 3? Where do you think his best position is? Because right now, before the game, we're thinking, why are we playing historically an attacking type of player in terms of Conor Gallagher? Because I think in my head I'm still thinking about how he was at Crystal Palace, those late runs into the box. But does Conor Gallagher, is he the new midfield utility player that you can ask a job of him and he's going to perform it to the best of his ability? Where do you see Conor Gallagher for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think he works perfectly in a 3. I think the whole midfield dynamic works better as a 3 than one of them as a 10. As we don't have a 10 at the moment, I think they can all sort of share the role of picking up the ball, passing it to each other, and moving into space. I think it also helps us maybe unleash a late runner almost. If it's not Gallagher, it's Enzo. If it's not Enzo, it's Gallagher. So you have that dynamic of one can move and one can sit, or both can sort of move with maybe the option that Caicedo can recover a bit. Although I think it's also dangerous leaving Caicedo as a 1DM. I don't think he's quite good in transition as someone like Kante used to be, where he'll win the ball off you cleanly and stop the attack and start a counter attack. I think Caicedo is a good enforcer when we're just sort of on the ball. But yeah, like I say, I think Gallagher's best position is in a 3.
Yeah. It's keen to see how things go, and I think he might, if everybody's still fit, is probably likely to stick with that 3 in the middle of the park at Turf Moor on Saturday at 3 p.m. Quickly round up on that one for the Chelsea Fulham game, chaps. Charlie, who was your man of the match?
It's a tough one, to be honest, because they all had such a good game. I couldn't name one player that didn't. If it was the first half, it would easily be Mudryk, but I think as a whole, I would have to go with Enzo. I just think he was the most consistent player that we had on the pitch. But that's not a discredit to any of the players on the pitch today. I think every single person played their part in that victory, and that is exactly what we need. We are a team. We haven't been a team for so long, and to watch a team performance like that was absolutely brilliant. And we got our result, didn't we? So there we go.
Yeah.
Temper, and who's man of the match for you? Cole Palmer?
Yeah, I think he was the different dynamic in our team we've been asking for a while on that right wing. I mean, last season, I think we had to deal with Ziyech and playing Pulisic out of position. And obviously Sterling being injured or having a bit of an illness today, he stepped right up. And he's been showing with his cameo appearances that he's got it in him to start for Chelsea. And I'm kind of eating my words because I said like 40 million for him, like what was the point sort of thing. But I suppose it's because of the abundance of players we have in that position. We didn't necessarily need to spend it, but he's looking like a good acquisition so far. So yeah, I have to give my props to him. He was amazing today.
Yeah, I'm excited to see more of Cole Palmer. I think for me, as a player, not necessarily, it sounds silly to say, not necessarily my man of the match, but he was the kind of the linchpin that allowed the players around him to perform so well. And I think for me, that was Caicedo. I think he performed very well. His best performance in the Chelsea shirt. I think he did the kind of the dirty work, the nitty gritty, and holding up that link up play, doing those passing triangles to free up those players, free up Enzo to make those crossfield balls and passes in and behind. So for me, it's just interesting to say how we can all watch the same game, but all have different man of the match when it comes to that. So yeah, we'll round up on the Fulham and Chelsea 2-0 winners this evening. I think the key thing we need to touch upon is Chelsea obviously went across winners against Brighton in the week. We defeated Brighton 1-0. Charlie, how big and how key was that for Chelsea going into today's game to get finally a win against a team? Let's face it, Brighton are a great team. They're so good. We're trying to buy all the players that they own. Like, they're a fantastic team. Like, how key was that in kicking on for today? And can you see that as a real catalyst to kind of look towards Saturday with a real renewed confidence?
I think that these 3 games were pivotal, weren't they? I think we looked at all 3 of them, and Brighton was the one that was looked the most hard, to be honest. That looked like the one that we were, or probably the least interested in, to be honest, because it's the Carling Cup or whatever they like to call it these days, and it's and it's against a team who like you say, pretty good. But we grinded that result out. We probably over the 90 minutes vaguely deserved it. I wouldn't say that we deserved it. Certainly in the first half, but we got there, did it, and we've gone into this match with a little bit of confidence. It looks like we've got players that played in that match that have come into this match, such as Cucurella, such as Cole Palmer, who have come in and looked again like ducks to water. Broja got a few minutes, and again he started today, so it has done us a favour there. What we're going to do against Burnley, that's the key. If we can get past that one, And if we can get 3 points there, this run suddenly doesn't look as bad as it did. It's still a hard run. We're still not favourites in any of the matches, but we can. I do feel as though there's, bearing in mind that we've got a hell of an injury list, it does look as though there might be some sort of grass that's greener on the other side, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know what you
Temba,
guys
do you
think.
think we kind of rode our luck a little bit in the Carabao Cups? Obviously, there's no VAR at the time. You know, it was 0-0, and you know Leslie Ugochukwu came in with 2 absolutely awful challenges. It should have been a straight red. Let's face it.
Yeah.
Do you feel like we got very lucky to have got away with it? Because we might not be sitting in this position here, you know, having won the game against Brighton, having won the game this evening at Fulham. How key was that in a weird kind of sliding doors moment?
Yeah, it's something I think I've said with just even scoring goals in terms of you just need that luck sometimes. You know, once something goes right, a few more things just start going your way. And you saw it kind of with today with our, we scored a goal and then 20 seconds later we're 2-0 up. You know, good things come to those who wait. And we were just lucky, I suppose, with that red card. It just, it didn't go Brighton's way. We ended up scoring a goal and we frankly got away with one. But I think with the Jackson chance should have been 2-0. He was onside as well for that the awful linesman decision there. And it shows you why there probably still is a need for VAR, because those 2 decisions completely changed the game. So when people are saying, oh, VAR is a terrible thing, you know, in situations like that, you definitely do need VAR. But that's besides the point. I think
a Liverpool fan might disagree with you right now.
Just on that, Tom, I was going to ask you something off the back of your question. I mean, how much do you think the I don't know what they call it now. I still call it the Carling Cup or the Worthington Cup. But do you think that's, you know, a lot of times a cup run does a little bit, doesn't it, for teams? And West Ham had it last season, and you know there's been plenty of other examples over the years. Do you think it's you know, we've got an easy draw in the next round, haven't we? And Man City are out of it already. So do you think it's something that we should target? Maybe, you know, a few players coming back.
As a Chelsea fan, I'm very dubious to call any game we play an easy game. Because, you know, we've got previous of the last 12 months of it not being particularly well. So very dubious to go there. Blackburn are on fire. You know, they scored like 9 goals, I think, in one of the rounds. I think the second round of the Carabao Cup. So, you know, they're a decent team in the Championship at the moment, albeit at the Championship. I think when we look at what realistically is going to be feasible for us this season, you know, are we looking at top 7? Probably not. Realistically, we're probably not at that stage. I think a lot rests on the games after Burnley. It does, of where we're potentially likely going to end up. Could we aim for the top half of the table? I think we can aim for the top half of the table. I think, you know, anything less than 12 is probably going to be a failure, because we can't go around there again. You can't invest billions upon billions of pounds into the playing squad to get new staff in and have the exact same moment again.
I just wanted to ask you guys, do you think that the next 2 games impacts the next 5 or 6? Do you think it really says anything, or does nothing change as soon as we kick off against Spurs?
I think it does, because if you look at the age of the general age of the players that we have in the squad and how big confidence is, this is the first real big knockbacks that they're experiencing in their careers at such a high profile level. So I think it can have a factor, you know, like going into the game. It might not necessarily feel it. They might on paper be the weaker team. You know, the bookie's favourite is always going to be the players of the team against Chelsea. Like, I think it's the first time in a while that we're, you know, playing Tottenham where we're not going to be the favourites. But I think it does play a factor. Charlie, I don't know if you think, you know, confidence is king in this scenario.
Well, I mean, it's confidence with us, isn't it, as fans? I mean, the thing is, right, if we've beaten Fulham today, right? We beat Brighton on last Wednesday, whenever it was. And if we go to Burnley and get 3 points there convincingly, let's say we go there and win 2-3-0 or something like that, and we win convincingly there, and we go into this run of fixtures, why, you know, are we then looking at it as, rather than, oh God, we're going to lose until December, or are we going to look at it as, how many points can we gain that we in the next after we get after December, we've already done those games. They're out the way now. And we can then push on. If we can nick, say, for example, we do, 6, 7 games? Let's say that what's the maximum 21 points, let's say, in those games. If we can nick 10 points, for example, out of 21, well, that's pretty good, right? Doesn't, I would say that's pretty good. And if we can do that and then move on to January, and we've already done those games, we're not going to play them again, or certainly not in that order at least. And perhaps we could go on a bit of a run. We have players coming back. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Do you see what I'm trying to say? So I suppose you can look at it in two ways. Yes, we can go in there and we can lose every game, and of course it'll be disaster, and it'll be the same as last season, and all this sort of stuff. Or you can look at it as we beat Burnley, we put a few points on the board, we get up to I don't even look at the table. Maybe we get to 12 or something. I don't know if we beat Burnley, right? And if we can get say 10, 12 points out of 21 out of those games, let's say, I would imagine we'll probably stay about where we were to begin with, right? And then we can push on. So you've got to look at it two ways,
I think that's
it's unlikely. I'm just saying.
Charlie. I completely see where you're coming from.
2 games on the bounce. What's stopping us winning a third one on the bounce?
I think
What's
Timber,
stopping
you
us getting
sit
a
from
draw.
I think you sit with a more realist, like especially on previous experience in the last 12 months. Like realistically, do you think it's a factor in terms of these 2 games, or would you say it's it's Brighton in the cup with a weakened Brighton side against Fulham that didn't really turn up today? Let's face it, with us with a really weakened side. Do you think that confidence is king, or is that going to play a factor going into Sunday at Turf Moor?
Well, in terms of Turf Moor, I think definitely, yeah. I think there'll definitely be more impetus on us to score goals. It's more about going forward past that. I think we could look to not losing on Sunday, whereas previous, or is it Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday 3 o'clock. I might be going.
Yeah, Saturday 3 o'clock. So if it's a case of us going there, I don't think we're in that mindset. We're going to lose now. I think we're in the mindset we can get all 3 points. But when we start playing the big boys, Spurs and Man City and whatever, we'll be wishing that our best players were fit for that. You will be wishing that Chilwell, Reece James, whoever else is out, Mudryk if he's out. Whoever, just all our best players in Kunku if he was fit, Chukwuemeka, whoever else, we would be wishing our best players are fit, and it's just something I hope those games haven't come too soon, because the perfect time to have gained those points would have been the last 5 or 6 games we've played. I think
you're right. Yeah.
If we had won 4 out of 5, whatever previously, that would have been the perfect time where I think Poch, the players themselves, sort of can play against Man City, lose 2-1 or 3-1 narrowly, giving it their all. But if we go into that game and, we go 1-0 down, I think their heads drop straight back again, thinking we're not good enough. And it's a danger. It's a dangerous thing. Even I have to say, even Lampard, if you remember under his second season, we were like top of the league, I think, by like November or something, where we beat all the teams we were supposed to beat.
City. Was it City? Sorry, you go.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think we came up against someone. It might have been Man City, and we just got thrashed. And then ever since then, we just kept losing and losing and losing. Yeah. And I think one of his last games was like Fulham away, and we got like a 1-1. I think Mason Mount scored that game. He made him captain. Yeah, I remember that. And I just hope it doesn't have like that sort of adverse. It sort of doesn't have that adverse effect on them where they think like, again, like last season, where we just can't seem to win a game because we're not good enough, because the opposition are just too good. And it's something me and Charlie said. We're watching the game Liverpool-Tottenham yesterday. I'd say our players would have a fit trying to play football like that. We'll be pulling hamstrings and everything, just trying to keep up with that tempo of play. So it shows you the levels we need to get to as a team. So I just hope we scrape a point at least in some of those big games, because we really, really needed to get points in the previous games, and we've let those points just slip, like sillily slip.
Yeah. I mean, Charlie, you alluded to it previously, like how important is the Carabao Cup, the League Cup, in today's day and age. But I think Chelsea, we're not expected to qualify for Europe, in the league, but this is a route, this is an avenue in. So could potentially Pochettino be thinking, do you know what? Let's just look at these one-off. They're knockout fixtures. They're one-on-ones. You could go through on penalties. Could the Carabao Cup be an advantage for Chelsea to get into Europe, albeit it will be in the Europa Conference League, the playoff stage? But it's an opportunity for Chelsea to potentially win, the Europa League, the Champions League, and become the first team to win all three in the Europa Conference League. Could that be an avenue you'd be happy with, winning the League Cup and going that route?
Well, I don't think we need to plan now to how we're going to qualify for Europe. I think at the moment the easiest way to qualify is to win matches in the Premier League and try and go the natural way, if you like. But my argument with the Carabao Cup is we've got a fairly easy fixture, the next one, Blackburn at home. Why not try and win that match? We should be able to win that match fairly comfortably, and then let's see what happens. It doesn't make any sense to sort of flunk it. That's what I'm trying to say. It's you sort of have to see how it goes. You've got to remember as well, Man United have drawn with Newcastle, so that means one of those are going to be out. There's a lot of it's only really Liverpool and Arsenal are the only two other ones left in it. I think Tottenham went out in the first round.
Yeah, they're out already. Yeah,
Nottingham Forest or someone. So there's teams, good teams that are out there already, and some of those will flunk it. Liverpool are in the Conference League or whatever it's called. I don't know what they're in. They're in one of the leagues. So I think we're one of the teams that will probably fancy our chances in this one, especially with the draw that we've got. Blackburn at home, that should be an easy one to get through. And I'm not sure, does anybody know about the one after that? Is it before Christmas or after Christmas? Because obviously, if it's after Christmas, then we might have half the players back, and we can actually rest players to actually play in this competition.
It'll be before because of FA Cup.
Really? I think it's after.
Yeah.
It'll be the quarter-final, wouldn't it? At least. If we beat Blackburn, it'll be the quarter-final. 100%.
Yeah, I think the quarter-final's like midweek, and then usually like the second week of January or third week of January, and then the semi-finals like
towards February.
Yeah, like the last week of January, early February, and then obviously the finals are usually about the 20th or 28th of February, around that time.
Well, I stand corrected because I can't find it quickly enough in time for Googling. I think a key thing, I'm conscious of time and try and keep these things to an hour where possible. Very quickly, we are running up at time. So we look at the Burnley versus Chelsea preview. Charlie's probably going to head up there to Turf Moor to represent us there, film a nice little video like you would have witnessed, like myself and Temba did on our trip to Stamford Bridge to watch us lose to Aston Villa. How are we feeling going into this game? Are we radiating positivity on the basis of these two games? And Charlie, what do you reckon the final score is going to be?
Well, I don't think it's going to be an easy game. I think Burnley, from what they've shown so far, they're not an easy team to beat. They don't tend to get hammered, if that makes sense. They don't tend to lose by 10-0 every week or something like that. They're not. I think Sheffield United are probably the weakest team, along with Luton in the league. I think Burnley have got something about them. They've had a pretty hard run of fixtures. Obviously, I would expect us to win, and I think most people would. But at the same time, it's not going to be an easy game. They may be hard to break down. But there's a lot of positives from tonight, and I think that if we can bring that into the next game, I do fancy us. I think 2-0 Chelsea.
2-0 Chelsea. Temba, renewed positivity.
I hope it's a win because they haven't got a single win this season. I think they only drew to Forest away. Again,
yes, they did.
Their only wins. No, they did. They beat Forest up away as well in the cup, but anyway, in the league wise,
in the league, they
haven't won a game. They've only got 1 point, I believe. So I think we get 3 points. I'm going to go for a 2-1.
Yeah, I think I'm quietly confident in 3 points, but hesitant to announce it as adamantly as I think it would be, just on the basis of the last 12 months. I think we will walk away, and I'd like to see us lead with a clean sheet again, 3 clean sheets in a row again. Installs more confidence in the back line also. But I greatly appreciate you for joining us this week. You've had the opportunity to see us. You can make sure you subscribe at the We Talk Chelsea podcast. We are live on TKS TV, and we're streaming this evening to Facebook. So if you're there on YouTube, I greatly appreciate. Charlie, you want to interrupt?
Yeah, I just want to say F you Domino's Pizza before I go. Thanks very much.
Oh yeah. Everybody knows Papa John's is better than Domino's, and Pizza Hut too. But only Pizza Hut when you sit into the restaurant, because that's like the really nicer base. Anyway, you can tell we play for a weight loss football team. I digress, but I appreciate you both for joining us this evening. If you are watching us, please hit that subscribe button. It really, really helps. We want to try and get as far up by the end of the season as we possibly can. What should we aim for? Should we aim for a certain number?
No, just
by the
keep
end of
going.
the season.
No, we just keep plowing on.
I've got one in my head. I've got one in my head for the end of the season. I'll let you know what it is. But I appreciate you both for joining. We will be back. We're a million, yeah. I wish. I appreciate you all for joining us. We will be back next Monday at 9:30 p.m. We do this on Mondays at 9:30 p.m. on YouTube.com/We Talk Chelsea. Take care. Up the Chelsea.
Up the Chelsea.